welcome to Two Girls, One Pod. This is the episode where I have a guest on, so there really are two girls on the one pod. Today's guests, firstly, we are recording on Wurundjeri country. Today's guest has the most beautiful name I've ever heard, Victoria Devine.
That's very kind of you.
Well, it's a very nice name. Welcome.
I'm keeping it forever. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Victoria is a financial advisor.
Ex-financial advisor. We quit that to focus on my love of dogs. Yes.
You are a woman after my own heart. So, dogs, Victoria.
Oh, that's what this podcast is about. How we can afford more dogs.
Yes, because you have...
Good budgeting, my friend. I'm here for it.
I'm here for all of it. You're a podcaster. You're an author. You run She's on the Money and is the co-director and founder of Zella Money.
Yep.
You've written 3 best-selling books and you've got a 4th on the way.
I do. It actually got launched today, which is a Tuesday when we're recording.
Oh, my God.
Today's my launch day, which is
Congratulations.
really cool. Yeah, so fun.
Happy launch day.
Thanks. I don't really, it's very anticlimactic.
Not at all.
Like, what are you meant to do? What are you
Add in
meant
the claps
to do?
there, Rachael. Thank you very much. You also have a background in behavioural psychology.
I do, yeah.
And you're pregnant.
I am.
Congratulations on all of these things.
I didn't do a lot of the work for that last one. But that's
pregnancy?
okay. Yeah, like it wasn't really.
You were there.
I was present.
And you know what? You're the carrier.
Yeah, it's kind
Most
of
important
like,
part.
I was saying this to my husband last night. This has been very much like a group project where like one person does 99% of the work, one person does 1%, but we both get A pluses and there's definitely no grudges being held. Yeah, so
Absolutely not. No grudges whatsoever. Do you know what you're having?
no, we're going to keep it a surprise, which is shocking everybody because
I
of
like
how
that.
controlling I am. So they're like, how are you doing this of all people?
So we were just saying off air, you have ADHD.
I do.
And you harness it so well. Like just in that bio, you can tell that you've harnessed it very, very well.
I feel very lucky to have been diagnosed really early. So I got diagnosed when I was still a teenager and I think that has led it to be, a bit more of, I guess, one of those journeys where people look at it and go, wow, that's so impressive. Whereas if I hadn't been diagnosed as early as I was, I think this would have been a lot bumpier of a ride.
And it is for so many, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think people look at me and they go, but how have you done it? You did it since you were so young. And I'm like, well, I knew since I was like 17, 18 that I had this. Like I didn't find out in my 30s. I found out really young. I've already worked out the medication thing. I've already worked out how to function properly because I've been surrounded by the right support. So I feel very grateful for that, but I always want to preface it with that because I'm always like, well, if you have it and then you're wondering why you're not, doing the list of things that you just reeled off, there's a good reason, and it's probably because you didn't know.
Exactly. I could not agree with you more. I was saying to you earlier, a good friend of mine, Celeste Barber, has it, and she was diagnosed at 13. And, her parents were we don't want the meds to change her. Like, that's all. We love her personality, but this is detrimental to her.
100%.
And she says it all in her book as well. But, and they were like, it's going to really help. It's really going to help. And it has. Like, she has got this amazing life because she's so aware of what's happening and she got the meds right and she uses them properly and, uses them when they're needed or doesn't. And I think it's really great that we have these kind of conversations because of the amount of women who weren't diagnosed. And it's not too late.
No, absolutely not.
Nothing is too late,
It's
is it?
funny because the more we talk about this on social media, the more people kind of like slide into my DMs and like, thank you so much, Victoria. I went and spoke to my doctor about it. And this woman slid into my DMs the other day. She's like, I'm 66 and I've never felt better. And I was like, get it, queen. Like, I'm so sorry that it happened so late for you, but I'm so glad that you now have a harness on that and things make sense.
Yes, makes sense. And that's so great to hear from women like that as well, because it was such a boys. I had ADD as a child and I still haven't, had any meds or anything like that. So I'm not sure what's going on with me, but it's been late because it was always just
It's
dismissed.
obviously worked out, my love.
Yes,
it
I'm
has
doing okay.
worked out. We're doing all right.
Doing okay. But let's talk more about you.
Oh, no, let's not. But okay.
Thank you for being my guest. I love finances and things like that, especially when it comes to women. because of the amount of women
The
mid-aged.
biggest rising group of people experiencing homelessness is women above the age of 55,
Yes.
which to me is absolutely cooked, completely unacceptable.
And this is what I thought you would be really passionate about. And
Wildly.
I said to my producer, I want to talk to her about that
You're
because
so kind.
this is something, I'm 50, and this is something that's really, it's happening to people I know.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm a big anti-patriarchal thing, like, because of this is the reality of women's futures if they kind of buy into that whole stay at home, look after the man and let them do all the financial stuff. And then when they are done with you and they move on, you're pretty much left with nothing. Like, they don't get their super or they don't have anything.
It's because they usually, so like say, I chose not to work and, my husband might be the breadwinner and we might be in the best relationship ever, right? Like, nobody gets into these situations because they go, do you know what I want? I would love to be homeless at 55. That just sounds like a dream. Nobody says that, right? And I think that if you're sitting here and you're looking at circumstances like this, or you're going through a divorce that's completely unforeseen, that's the point. Like, you never expected that. Like, you might have gone through your entire life with this person. You've brought up kids, they're now in their 30s. Like, who saw this coming? Definitely not me. Definitely not you. So I think looking at it and going, well, actually, we had a whole heap of things that didn't serve us along the way. So first things first, you might have had a breadwinner partner who just paid all the bills. And you might have been like, money win. I don't have to do any of that. Also, admin win. I hate admin. So not having to pay the bills, great. But do you know how to pay the bills? Like, if I said, hey, this isn't working out, can you just pay the electricity? Do you actually know how to do that? If you don't, it's not about taking back control and yelling at your partner. It's actually about going, all right, well, what does that process look? Just so that you can learn and be across it. And obviously being out of the workforce for a significant period of time means you're not accruing superannuation, which is what most women retire with being their biggest asset. And that's what they rely on for their retirement. And if you haven't been contributing to that, then what have you got to fall back on if you haven't been saving and investing on the outside? Because that's actually really unobtainable. How many of us actually have the funds to do that? That's why super exists. So it's about these conversations of going, okay, well, if you wanted to be out of the workforce, are we having our husbands or our partners contribute to our superannuation in our absence from the workforce? Because that's entirely possible.
It is?
It is entirely possible for your partner to be contributing to your super. And you could say, well, actually, financially it works out because we get some tax benefits. I feel really secure. Obviously, in a perfect world, you and I are going to stay in love and married for our entire life, in which case that retirement pot, it's ours when we retire. So, mate, you're not missing out on anything. You're actually getting some tax benefits along the way. It's a red flag if you don't want to contribute it, because I go, well, what's your plan, buddy?
Yeah.
Why are you so worried about missing out on if we're planning
and if it's a
death
tax
do us
break?
part?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one of those things where these conversations need to be had.
They do.
And they need to be had sooner and earlier. And even those, I think they're small things, and I know they're not small things, but just going, hey, have you got an emergency fund? You might go, no.
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
We're really rich.
Yeah.
We don't need an emergency fund. I've got a credit card, like my husband will give me money anytime I want. Okay, but like, what if the proverbial hit the fan and you needed to get out of a place or a situation or literally anything? Do you have funds? Because I promise, I've seen it time and time again, and it breaks my heart. Women going, yeah, I had a credit card, but he cancelled it. And now I have no access to any cash, no access to buy anything. Can't even put fuel in my car. And you go, this is insane, because from the outside looking in, you're incredibly wealthy, but you don't have access to the money.
Yes.
So it's all about just these small things that along the way don't feel small, but when you look back on them, you go, those are the sticking points. Like, if I just had a couple of grand in, my own savings account, hopefully for a rainy day that never comes, that would be fantastic. If I knew how to pay the bills, I don't have to do it. Let's be honest. No one wants more life admin if we don't have to do it.
But, even just learning to pay a bill, if you lose your husband to a death,
and
is something that all of a sudden you have to learn how to,
We can be real morbid here, actually, if I'm allowed.
Please.
women live longer than men.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so like at some point it's going to be on you, babe.
Yeah, that's right.
So whether you like it or not, whether you get a divorce or not, it's going to be you at some point, statistically. Not because I want it to be, that's awful.
No.
But more because that's just the reality of the circumstance.
It is. It really is. Now, before you even get married, you obviously believe that a woman should have her own account.
100%.
I do as well.
100%.
And what about...
Call it a squirrel fund. We're squirreling money away for a rainy day.
Yeah.
And squirrels always forget about their nuts, so it's all good.
Yeah. So if you had a bank account and you got married and the husband said, look, I'm going to take care of everything, you don't even have to disclose that you have an account,
absolutely
do you?
not. Why would you have to tell anybody that?
And say you're a stay-at-home mum then, and so you weren't having an income. What would you do with that fund, like that account?
Just sits there dormant.
Like making interest?
Oh, I mean, if you're a smart, savvy lady, you've got it in a high-interest savings account, just like bopping away to beat inflation, hopefully. But it can just be some cash sitting to the side that just makes you feel safe. In fact, from my perspective, as much as, I don't believe you should have to disclose it, I don't think that your partner should ever be threatened by it. It's a red flag for me if your partner goes, wait, why have you got money sitting to the side? Hold on, mate, why don't you?
Yeah.
Like the same thing could happen to you, like unless you somehow think that this is a power trip, in which case we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
So I just think obviously it would be great if it was all just in the clarity of the world. You just know that I've got an emergency fund.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Think in today's day and age, women have our own bank accounts. We have had for about 40 years now, like legally allowed to, where our husband doesn't have to sign it off.
100%. I remember talking to my mum. I'm obviously a business owner, wildly passionate about it, feel very lucky to be living in 2023 where I don't have anything that comes up against me when it comes to me going down to the bank and opening another bank account. And I was sitting down talking to my mum about banking one day. Really boring conversation, but when you are an ex-financial advisor, those are the dinner table conversations.
Yes.
My mum was a coroner, so the dinner table conversations went a real different way after I was done speaking.
Oh, my God, I'd love to go down that rabbit hole.
Insane. But I remember saying, I did this, this and this today. And my mum's like, you're so lucky. When I started my first business, because she bought a general store in her early 20s and thought, I'm just going to be, a business lady in Tasmania. Yeah, on her own.
I love your mother.
They made her dad go down and co-sign for the loan to make sure that she could buy that. And if you look back on it, the women in my family are the women who kind of hold up the economics of the family. So my grandpa, really great guy, but he grew up as a farmer, dropped out of school earlier. He definitely had dyslexia because my nana did all the the banking and the bookkeeping and stuff for him. Yep. But for some reason, the bank saw him as the guy that was definitely more trustworthy than my mum, who was, down the line, had all these books, had all these spreadsheets of what she was going to do and how she was going to start her business. But she can't be trusted.
That's offensive.
Because my friend, she's not male.
It's offensive to me.
It's wild when you start to break it down and
my mother was
insane.
The smarts.
Yeah.
She was elevated through school really quickly. She was a genius child. And then she married my father, who then made her quit her job. But, she ended up having to work again because his building business wasn't a business. He was a tradie. Never worked, didn't work properly because we had massive floods at times. And so she ended up having to go back to work. And she was so smart. She started as a receptionist for a guy running a travel company and ended up running the company within 5 years. Of course
she did get it, Mum.
Yeah. And she died in 2016. And it wasn't until after she died that I could see exactly what was going on. Oh. My father, immigrant, still can't really read or write that well. Yeah. That's when I noticed, Mum had been doing everything.
Carrying
She was really carrying him.
Mum, she's definitely listening. She knows you know.
Yes.
She's like, yeah, I know you know now.
Yes.
I just wanted to stay humble, babe.
But it was so awful because he really did keep her held down in that, and she did it to keep the peace. I know that, and because she comes from an age where she was born in 1948, where by the time she was married in the 60s, that's what you did. You did not embarrass your husband by appearing to be the smarter one.
Oh, of course not.
So offensive
Imagine
to me.
embarrassing men.
You're married.
I am.
So you obviously have a very progressive man in your life.
I do.
What does he do?
He is a digital marketing head of in a retail company.
And that's all I want to talk about, a man on this.
Do you know what? He's a fancy pants, but, you mentioned before, I'm pregnant. I'm not the one taking parental leave. He is. He's going to take 6 months off work. In fact, he would like to take more, but I'm like, well, let's just see how we go. Like, I'm very, very lucky to have a man who was raised by a staunch feminist.
Wonderful. So you found him. You found the one. I love that.
I did.
Oh, if only we could clone him.
Look, a lot of people have asked. Yeah. I'd prefer not because it might become quite confusing for me. But
how wonderful would it be for us? Oh, wow. I love that. And that he was raised by a staunch feminist. I can't believe that. I mean, I can believe that someone like you has found such a wonderful man like that. It's just such a shame there's not more of them.
Because there needs to be more.
We talk about this all the time, all of these men with the coercive control and the, monetary control. Like there's so much of it going on in family violence and domestic violence and things like that. I do want to ask you about the recession.
Yes.
Are we in a recession?
Oh, we're headed for a recession.
We are.
I think so. So it depends. If you ask some economists, we are absolutely headed for a recession. Some economists now are going to say, no, we're coming back off it. Today is a Tuesday, and it was announced earlier today that there has been another rate freeze, which is very sexy if you're me and you get excited about that stuff.
I don't have a mortgage or anything, but I get really angry with the RBA because I know people who do.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of financial pressure on a lot of families, right? You look at it and you just go, I get why they're doing it. So they raise the rates in order to cap inflation. So inflation is how much goods and services are increasing by, and over time that has increased significantly. So you would have heard the uproar earlier this year about HEX being indexed at 7.1%. That's because it was reflective of our indexation rate. And that was honestly way too high. And if we didn't do anything about it when it comes to cash, it just would have kept increasing and thus been even more crippling on our economy than the rate increases, right? So what the RBA is doing, albeit very painful, is very good for us.
Right.
Because it might feel like you are absolutely being crippled by the mortgage. And I know on an individual level, it's awful. Yep. But what that has meant is that indexation hasn't been able to increase and inflation hasn't been rising as much. So the costs of your goods and services, you would have noticed, has kind of plateaued. I feel like over the last 18 months, coffee particularly, like I'm now paying like $6.50 for my regular oat latte. Like, are you joking?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But a year ago, 18 months ago, that was $5, right?
So in the grand scheme of things, that's not that large.
Well, I mean, to me, it's really large. If you drink as much coffee as I am, it's actually quite financially crippling. But you look at it and go, all right, well, that is an increase in costs of goods and services. And as much as our mortgages are costing us a lot of money, I would actually prefer for everyone to just have a reasonable grocery bill. And that's what the RBA is trying to do by increasing the cash rate, because they go, no. If the world is more expensive and cash is more expensive to get hold of, people are going to stop buying big things.
Yeah, that just makes sense.
Yeah, they're going to stop buying the big things so we can focus on the small ones, focus on small business and focus on our economy getting back on its feet. So are we headed for a recession? I mean, at the start of the year, I would have said unequivocally yes. Yeah. But with another rate freeze, I look at it and go, do you know what? We might just scrape out of it. One of the cool things about living in Australia and having, I guess, the Australian economy is we kind of live in a bubble. We're very, very lucky that we live in a world where a lot of our produce doesn't have to be imported in. Yeah. So we're a relatively self-sufficient country. We also have a lot of exports. I mean, we could talk about it all day because I get very excited about it, but I won't. So I think we live in this kind of economic bubble where if you see something really bad going on in America, it might hit us here, but it never hits us as hard.
Right.
So if you look back to the GFC, which happened in 2008, 2009, we know that was financially crippling.
Yeah.
But way more so for America than for Australia. And the, I guess, impacts in Australia were really driven by what was going on in the American economy. So we look at it and go, all right, it sucks. I totally get it. And on individual levels, you might look at this and go, but Victoria, like I had to sell my investment property. I had to do this. I had to do that. It sucks, but that's also a privilege in this economy to be able to have that flexibility. And unfortunately, those things were an investment, and sometimes investments don't make financial sense. And when you signed up to that, you knew that if interest rates were going to increase, that would be maybe a likely outcome. So I don't want to be rude about it, you could say.
Please
but
be.
I also want to go, all right, well, actually, I'd much prefer us to look over to the single mums who are really struggling to put food on the table, and, you know, the elderly who are like, I only get a certain amount of pension, and that pension did not go up with inflation this year.
Yeah.
So that 7.1% means our pensioners are putting 7.1% less on their tables each and every single day.
Yeah.
So to me, that's really important.
You sound to me
a little bit crazy. Yeah,
my
I
God,
get it all the time.
Me? Are you kidding me? You sound like a socialist, not a capitalist.
No,
like,
I'm not a capitalist.
You really...
Please never call me that.
No,
I would be very
just,
sad.
I just think more of you.
Oh, thank you.
If we could clone you and your husband,
because I told
actually.
you before that I really want more dogs?
That was the beginning of my love affair with you. But no, like you seem to be exactly where I want us to go in the world, like especially in this country. But financially, you know, I mean, you just spoke about an investment property. Like I have a real thing about negative gearing and all of that kind of thing. Can you explain why? Just went on a tour to Darwin, and I had a woman sitting next to me, and I said, bloody negative gearing. She goes, I have an investment property. I'm worked really hard all my life to, and I was like, but we got rid of the negative gearing. Wouldn't we be doing better?
Yeah.
Is that true?
It depends. It's also, when we look at the property market here in Australia, I mean, we've been colonised for 200 years.
Yes.
So you look at our economy and go, wow, we've been building property and selling property on land for the last 200 years. You go over to America, you go to Europe, you go anywhere internationally, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. So the expectations overseas are very, very different to what they are here. So you look overseas, and actually one of the main expectations, and I think it's like 57% of people globally rent.
Yeah.
But then you go to like more dense locations like Canada and the US, and it goes up to close to 80% of people actually rent. And I mean, they have better lease terms than we do. We need to talk about that as well.
Because owning a property can be a business, and the people that own the big, you know, they use it as a business, whereas the investment, like the baby boomer investment properties that, you know, with the rent, that is
so we've got the great Australian dream, right?
Yes.
And that's that everybody in our economy here in Australia can buy their white picket fence. They can have their 2.6 children and a dog, and they can have a stay-at-home partner. Also, you know what they can do? They can go on one international holiday every 2 years, and they can also drive to Queensland with a family in the back every year, right? We've got to go to the theme parks. That is what we have set as our expectation.
Yes.
Internationally, that is not true. Owning a property for a lot of people internationally is just not a reality. It's too expensive, and a lot of it is kind of like a business. A lot of it is owned by the ultra wealthy. And I'm not saying that that's right.
No.
I'm just saying that our expectations have been set by 200 years in their space, which is not that long.
Right.
So when you look at it, you go, all right, well, should you be able to negatively gear a property? In Australia, there is no way that today property is going to increase in the way that it has over the last 40 years. So I did a piece of research the other day because, as I said before, I am crazy and also a nerd. And in 1975, the average property price in Sydney was $31,000-ish, right? Very sexy.
Yep.
It is now 27 times the median income in Sydney, and it historically was just 4 times. Just 4 times the average income.
Yeah.
And so we did the maths. I tried to terrify my team, and I said, all right, well, that makes sense. Like, you guys understand inflation, but what you don't understand is that incomes have not increased with inflation. If our incomes increased with inflation, we would have an average income of $172,000 a year. But we don't, though. It's 65,000, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
but
right.
we have the same expectations that were set back in 1975,
Yes.
don't we? Because we want what our parents had.
Yeah, we all
but
just want a home.
Not going to happen.
It's not, is it?
Let's be realistic. So is negative gearing a thing that is possible now? Yes. Is it a lot harder now? Yes, because we don't have the cash flow to support that. And historically, if you had 4 times your income and a good income, you could create your own little property portfolio and absolutely make bank. But nowadays, I think there's an overlay, very importantly, of ethics and whether that is an ethical investment model and whether you should be going down that route when it actually keeps a lot of people out of the market. So there's, and I like to think that I'm the type of person that my job is just to put the facts on the table and go, all right, well, here's what I do. I do technically have an investment property, but it's also, once you have that, how do you be an ethical landlord? What does that mean? How do you not take the mickey and absolutely, I've had friends who've had their rents increased by like $500 a week here in Melbourne. Yeah. And you just go, that's not an ethical landlord. No. That's a landlord that has looked at their mortgage and said, I can't afford this anymore. And instead of admitting that an investment is a risk, and sometimes that risk means you can no longer afford to service it and probably should dispose of that asset, they're trying to take advantage of other people. And you go, no, that's not it at all. So I think it's a bigger conversation of whether negative gearing should or shouldn't exist. Yes, it technically still does. There are going to be properties around Australia that are still negatively geared because they were purchased so cheap in 1975.
Yeah.
But today, purchasing a property and expecting it to be negatively geared, it's kind of like a pipe dream.
So what happens to all the negatively geared houses bought by boomers, for their nest funds or whatever, when they die, what does the future look like as far as that property portfolio goes?
So in the next 30 years, we are going to see the biggest intergenerational wealth transfer ever occurring in history, which is terrifying. It means a whole heap of millennials are going to get really rich and not know what to do with it.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people actually banking on that, which I find really ick. So it's one of those things where these things will be inherited and then they could potentially be sold. They could be managed by the people that are inheriting them, but they will be inherited. Thankfully, in Australia, we have a relatively straightforward system where if there isn't a will in place, there's a process for that. And that's not the same internationally. But I think it's really important to go, all right, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? Is there something that I should be preparing for, as much as that's really morbid, but making sure that those things are in the right structures so you don't get slammed with a whole heap of tax.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. And do you believe that in the future everyone will be able to buy a house? No, okay.
I don't think it's reasonable.
So we're becoming more of the international model.
Yeah, and that's why I mention it, because I'm like, you don't care about New York. Like, it's not relatable content. But their expectations are so different than what we have. And they've been set that way because that's the way the economy plays out. Like, we only have so much space and so much land here. And to be honest, we have expectations. Like you and I mean, we could go afford property in regional Victoria. Yeah. Absolutely we could. Yeah. That would be fantastic. But that's not the lifestyle that we're choosing for us.
That's right.
And that's where you go, okay, well, maybe we could, if you're really passionate about property and still want to own it, go, all right, well, what kind of property could we start with? Maybe we invest regionally so that you can provide a property for someone who's never going to be able to buy that property, be an ethical landlord, lease it out, start creating some wealth for yourself, which is totally fine from my perspective, as long as you're ethical along the way. And then, you're contributing to society. You get some property in your portfolio and someone gets a roof over their head that is reasonable and absolutely not taking the mickey. But you might go, well, V, I would only care about property if I owned it. Yeah. In which case I go, right, well, what else are we doing to create wealth and put you in a position where you're not one of those women in that demographic of, experiencing homelessness? So I think it's just so important that irrespective of whether you want to be in property or not, you actually need to be investing for your future and caring for your future, because life's expensive.
Yeah.
Life sucks. Like, it's really the worst. Does. What the heck?
Yeah.
Like, why do we have to keep paying for stuff? At what point are you going to be like, hey, it's free? Like, and why didn't I care more when I was 3 years old and got what I wanted and didn't have to pay rent?
And could nap. And why did I fight naps so hard?
I don't know, but like, if you offered me a nap right now, I'd be like, let's go.
Let's go. These kids don't know how easy they've got it.
Honestly, and then they cry? Sir, what are you crying about? You're a freeloader.
And you get any food you want.
Exactly.
If you don't want it, you can throw it and it's
on
fine.
The floor, and you don't even get in trouble, nor do you get kicked out of the restaurant.
You've mentioned that you haven't always been great with money.
Oh, no, I was so bad at money.
Okay, so how did you begin to change that for yourself, and where can others start?
So I began, you know what, you just go hard. Like, I've got ADHD. Did you really think I was going to get into $1,000 worth of debt and be like, oh, well, with me? I got into $42,000 worth of debt by the ripe old age of 22.
Wow.
Thankfully, that was before the Royal Commission, because I don't even know if that would be legal today.
Yeah, that sounds so American, doesn't it?
Yeah, wild, but it wasn't. It was right here in Melbourne.
Right here,
Right
credit
here
cards.
in Melbourne. No, I got a personal loan. Go hard or go home. I had a $500 credit card. That wasn't serving me. I obviously was a little bit capitalist back then. Mm-hmm. I needed a new car. Mm-hmm. I wanted to travel the world. I was 22 and I had finished my degree. So I was basically a genius. Mm-hmm. I also had a salary of $45,000 a year. So 42 didn't even sound that bad because it wasn't even my full salary like annually, right? And that was when I worked in behavioral psychology.
Okay.
So I adored behavioral psychology, and I've always been one of those people that wants to have an impact. It's why I was in psych. Like, I really wanted to help you change and do things, and I want to be part of that. And so got myself into some debt, couldn't sleep. Like, it ate away at me. I mean, it didn't eat away at me immediately. Like, I had a really good holiday. Thanks for asking. Loved the car. It made me look so cute. It was a 2-door Mercedes coupe.
Oh, yes.
I still have it today because
Do
I
you?
carry so much. Yeah, it's the worst car in the entire world. You can ask any of my team members. They always like, which car are we driving in today? Is it Steve's or is it yours? And then I'm like, oh, it's mine. And they're like,
Oh, my God.
when I take them
love
through
that
the
you still
Macca's
have it.
drive-through, I have to open the door because the windows don't work in it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And the only reason I'm getting a new one is because my husband said you can't have a 2-door and have a newborn.
True.
Which is kind of rude. Like,
Yeah,
I was going to
no.
make it work.
No, but your back is going to thank your husband
Yeah.
in
look,
about a year's time.
Anyway, love this car. Can't get rid of it because obviously I like went through so much to get it that I have this very, very anxious attachment type to it. Anyway, got in all this debt, appreciated it for a very short period of time, and then just felt so overwhelmed. I was like, what do you mean? Like, my rent at that point was like maybe $900 a month and my debt repayments were $883 a month. And I remember just being like, I have no money left. Like, on a $45,000 salary to live a 22-year-old's life, as well as put groceries like on the table, as well as pay bills and then rent and then this like debt repayment. I wasn't saving, I wasn't investing, I wasn't doing anything, and I couldn't afford life. Like, I just remember being like, I have no money ever. And I was working in corporate, and I think there's this idea that when you get into corporate, you've made it. Like, even if you're earning minimum wage in corporate, you're still like, I'm really chic. Do you visit my like stilettos? Because that's who I was. Mm-hmm. And so thankfully one thing led to another. One of my clients was a financial advisor at this practice. Okay. And I just remember being like, that's the worst job. Unlucky. Like, imagine wanting to work in finance. How sad. Anyway, he would always say, Victoria, you're not going to like to hear this, but you would make the best financial advisor. And I'd be like, get ripped. Absolutely not. So I started using him a little bit to learn about my own financial literacy and how do I get out of this debt? What do I do? I really want to invest, really want to save, all of that stuff. And I was like, hey, this is pretty powerful stuff. Super's pretty cool. So I'd take that to brunch. And then I'd be like, sit down, Yvie, we're going. Have you heard of Super? And you'd be like, I really want to talk about the guys that I've met this weekend. And I'd be like, you don't though. You want to talk about Super. So my friends just got real sick of me. And I decided that maybe finance was for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one thing led to another. I ended up doing a few more finance degrees because obviously, as we mentioned before, I am a massive overachiever. So at 22, I was doing my MBA. So I was doing more finance units in that. And I was like, I don't like the managerial finance side of things, but I like the power aspect. I love that I can, you know, help people in the same way that I was in psychology, but also this is now measurable. Like, I can sit you down and go, if you contribute a bit more to your super, you're not going to ever be in any financial harm. Like, that's sexy. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want that for all my friends. Yeah. And so I was that ranty, ravey friend at brunch, and then, you know, got my degrees and decided maybe I should channel this. I'll make a Facebook group. So I made She's on the Money, the Facebook group. And I guess that's the end of a very long-winded story about how She's on the Money started.
Not at all. That's fascinating. And because just talking to you and about, like, you know, oh, was like, how do you get into money? Like,
accidentally, you just fall into
really
it. It sucks you in.
And you really found it fascinating enough to become this passionate about it, because everyone has money. Everyone has to deal with money.
It's the common denominator that we all experience. Like,
what's
but we
the
don't
saying?
talk about it. What the heck?
The only thing in the world that's guaranteed is taxes and death.
Yeah.
It's the one thing we're all going to.
Both of those things suck.
Yeah.
So cool. Can we have more of a sunshine and roses version of that?
Yeah.
But like that wouldn't be reality,
no,
would it?
that's right. And that it's so incredibly important. And I'm really glad She's on the Money exists, because there's just so much as women that we need to realise how important it is.
But it's so like, and I obviously am wildly passionate about this, but it is not just a little bit important. It is life or death. It is make or break. It is the most important thing that you will focus on. And I think that as women, we get overwhelmed and we think that, we're too silly, or we are, too old, or now's not the time. We're in reality, finances aren't about you having more money in your bank account immediately. It's actually about you having the tools and the resources in your toolkit. And that's why I exist, because I want you to have this full toolkit. If you can't use it right now, that's so fine. I don't mind. But when you do come into some money, you'll know what to do with it. You won't be overwhelmed. You won't feel really bad about it. We'll be able to make clean, clear, decisive decisions instead of blowing it. Because how many of us just go, oh, okay, well, there's an extra $200. I'll go out for dinner with my girlfriends. I deserve that. And you do deserve that.
Yeah.
But future you deserves that more. Okay. So can we put it aside so that future you can have coffees with her girlfriends instead of stressing and being at home? Can future you have a dinner out or a lunch out with friends instead of having to be at work when they're 70 because we haven't contributed enough to our retirement funds? She deserves so much.
Wow, yes.
We need to put her first, and sometimes we need to see that compromise for what it really is. It's not really a compromise. Like, it's actually a sacrifice we're making today so we can have a bigger, better one later.
Because it's macabre as it sounds. There's a mortality thing with young people that doesn't exist. You honestly don't care. You think, that is so far away, and I probably won't even be alive when I'm 70 anyway, so I don't care anyway. Like, or that's just going to take care of it. Or I inherit my parents, But it's something that we really need to take very seriously.
And it's not that sexy, and that's why I'm trying so hard to make it sexy.
Thank you for trying so hard.
I think it's so important
and it's not
to understand.
Sexy. It's so ingrained in men and boys.
Have you seen a budget? Oof. Oof. Have you ever met a man that's like, have you seen my cash flow plan? Like, yes, please.
So if you could wave a magic wand and the curriculum could be changed at school.
Oh, that would be so good. I've been arguing with so many people about trying to do this.
Can it be done, though? Like, can we change a curriculum? Because when I came out of high school, I knew nothing about how to balance a checkbook, because when I did high school, you had checkbooks.
Yeah.
And why?
It would be
why
kind of useless if we did that now. Yeah. So maybe I won't put you in charge of the financial literacy thing.
But why don't we teach that in school?
Honestly, because curriculum is set and it makes sense, and I totally understand that there's, rules and regulations around that, but I just think that young people would benefit so much more if I sat you down and said, this is what superannuation is, this is what it does, this is what it means. And when you turn 14 years and 9 months and get your first job, you will be earning superannuation. And how cool is it that you can contribute literally 12% of your income to an investment that grows over your lifetime? Most of us can't do that. So we need to understand that. Like, I want to be able to teach banking systems and emergency funds. One of the things that I'm wildly passionate about would be teaching young kids the identifying features of financially abusive relationships so that they know what that looks like and how that works. To me, it's really important that you get that base level of financial literacy, because I came out knowing how to do trigonometry, and that did not serve me well because look how much debt I got into.
Yeah.
But like, why can't we teach all of these basics? Because they help kids if you go out and quit school at year 10 and become a tradie. They also help kids if they go through to become a brain surgeon. Do you know how many smart people exist that don't know how to manage money? Mm-hmm. Like, it's got nothing to do with whether you're intelligent or not. as I said, it's about learning a language.
Yeah.
And it might just be a language you don't know how to speak yet.
So the magic wand can't be waved because obviously,
No.
but for anyone that's listening, what can they do for their teenage kids? I think just start with that. Do you know when you're 14 years and 9 months of age and you can start earning, you're going to have a super?
Yep.
Let's talk
give
about
them
that.
the resources that they need, or give them the resources that you needed. There's so many different ways to, I guess, cut that pie, and you might not be comfortable talking about money. At which point you need to reflect on why that's the case.
Yes.
Why are you uncomfortable approaching money with your teenager?
Yes.
Were you not able to talk about it as a child? In which case, let's change that narrative. How do we do it? So there's a lot to it. It's just more what's going to work for you and your family.
Yeah.
I obviously have thought about this deeply, and when I have this baby and it starts getting pocket money, it's paying family tax, which I'm really excited about. So I'll give it I don't know, what are you meant to give kids these days as pocket money, like $10 or something?
Yeah.
I'll be taking $2.50 as family tax.
Good.
We're going to put it in a jar, and then once a year we'll make a decision on what family tax gets spent on, and it might be on infrastructure for my house, like a new microwave, or
just
maybe
any government gives tax.
Exactly.
Yeah, it goes on the roads and the infrastructure.
So my kids will hopefully have an understanding of why tax is actually really cool. So there's lots of different, I guess, ways to cut that.
It sounds like a dictatorship, but it's not at all.
No, it's not. I want
smart.
them to understand that taxes are about group decisions that are best for the community.
Can I just ask, when we do government budgets,
Yeah.
do you have a party?
No, we all
party?
go out for dinner and we watch it on our phones. And we critique the whole
I'm
thing.
coming next time. Please, can I
But
come
we're not
and watch,
very nice,
watch
as long as-
you
Yeah.
watch the budget happening.
Yeah, I throw hands at the table. I'm
Yes.
like, I cannot believe that. That is
Yes.
shocking.
Yeah. You should live stream it because I would love to watch
I put it
that.
all on
You
my
do.
Instagram stories. People like Victoria, think a bit more before you go rogue. And I'm like,
no, go
absolutely
rogue.
not. It's part of the brand.
That's who you are. Okay, so I could go, this could go forever. Obviously, we don't
I would
have that
talk
kind
about
of time.
financial literacy forever with you
and I
too.
could
So
listen.
you need to wrap me up, my
I'm
friend.
wrapping you up, but what I want to, so from here, people that have listened and me, where do we start from here? So tell me the podcast, you've got 3 books and a 4th book coming out today.
I'm crazy, yeah.
Okay, so where do we start?
But
What
first
do we do?
we're actually going to start somewhere completely different,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yes, please.
We're going to not care about what past you did.
Okay.
We're actually going to go, you know what? We're going to pull our heads out of the sand, because to do a budget, right, that feels overwhelming and uninspiring. And you know what feels worse? When you sit down and you go, oh, I'm the worst. I can't believe Victoria spent this much. I'm so embarrassed. That doesn't serve you. Chuck that out. We're excited about
like
this.
that.
If you spent money on something, you do you.
Yep.
I don't care what it is. What I care about is future you. She hasn't done anything wrong yet, so stop being mean to her.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start there by taking the pressure off and realising that we're all on different journeys at different places, and that's okay.
Okay.
It's why I wrote my first book,
Okay.
She's on the Money. By the way, I had to, in the acknowledgements, apologise to my dad for always yelling at him for trying to teach me times tables, because turns out finance is my job. But in that book, I really talk about money stories and understanding where you're starting from to begin with, because you can't compare yourself to other journeys.
Okay,
It's where we started at this conversation about ADHD, and I'm like, please realise that I got diagnosed early.
Yes.
So I'm really lucky, and not everyone is in that circumstance.
Yes.
You might look at me and go, how's she achieved so much?
Yeah.
Because I had a better starting point.
And we wouldn't be thinking bad of those other people, would we?
Exactly. Have you ever
Exactly.
been like, oh my God, best friend, you are the worst with money. I'm so ashamed to know you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no way. You'd be like, YOLO, have
Yeah.
fun, babe.
Yeah.
Proud of you. You're actually
Yeah.
a really good human. Who cares?
Who cares? That's right.
So we're going to do that. Then there's obviously a million different resources. Obviously, plugging mine is fantastic.
Please plug yours, because you're the one I want to plug. I'm
Which is
now
so
like
kind.
a disciple.
Oh, thank you.
You
Welcome
are the
to the
only
cult.
person I want to get all my financial
We
advice
have
from.
dogs. We have wine.
Yep.
I'm really good at making cups of tea. I think you'll fit right in.
I'm in. Oh,
You're
I am. What's the one of the? Give me a name from the table where he had all the people. Jason, Matthew, Mark.
Oh, yeah. We're a disciple.
Yeah, I will not be Judah.
Oh,
Judas.
no. Judas, he's a traitor. I went to a Catholic
religious.
school.
Yeah, I called him Judah.
Yeah, whatever.
But I'll be singing
get
your
it.
praises forever.
You are
I already
very
am.
kind.
I can't wait to get out there and just sing your name.
I just wanted to like me so I can meet her dogs. Honestly, that's where we're at. But yeah, obviously I have 4 books now.
4
One
books.
of them
So
is a
start
budget
first,
template. Yep, She's on the Money.
Are they all for specific things that you can start different places in your life?
You can start different places, but I'd always start at the start.
Okay.
And I say start at the start because I really want you to get that understanding of who you are and where you're starting from and what you can create, because then I build on it. Then the next book is called Investing with She's on the Money. The book after that is like a budget and cash flow journal, so you can like implement everything from those 2 books.
Is that book like you can
draw in it? Yeah. Yeah, we love a little to do. And then the book that I have just brought out is called Property with She's on the Money, and that's how to get into your first property, but we also touch a lot on the ethics and where property has come from in Australia and what we need to respect, which I think is, to me, really important because, again, if you don't know where you're coming from, how do you know where you're going? And there are so many people that impacts, and it's not just you. So for me, we've got a lot to do. I've got more books to write, I promise. But my books are a good place to start. I obviously have a website as well with like free budgeting tools and saving templates, so you can download them all for free.
Okay.
And then my favorite website ever is actually moneysmart.gov.au, which is a really good non-bias, not that I am, but like you want to start somewhere that's not like a comparison website. Like Money Smart, it will help you check out your super. There's now a free super comparison tool on there that helps you make the right decisions, and like it's all written in a really approachable way. So you can do it, and you can do it for free. Yeah.
Oh, you're the best.
Yeah, but you need
There's
all of that. You deserve
women
all of
listening
that.
to this right now. I can see how excited my producer is right now.
She just knows I want to meet the
28-year-old
dog.
woman who has, is a gun at what she does as a job. Like, has this excited you as much as I think it has? Because to get this it's almost illegal. Or that we're getting it for free. Like, and this is also what I love about you is that you want it to be free. Well, who are you? Where have you come from?
I don't know.
You're
but
so not a man.
Does it not? Does it not make sense? I checked. I'm not.
To me, it makes so much. Like, I can't believe that you exist. Like,
It's
I
very
honestly
kind.
am just.
I would like to think that I don't have.
Life?
I would love to think that I don't have to exist, but I do because our stuffs are all messed up, and I think that women deserve it. I mean, I've been asked a heap of times why I haven't put, how you can do on podcasts now, like subscribers stuff. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, if I was a different podcast and I was entertainment, no worries, babe. But I'm not. Financial literacy, you can't gatekeep financial literacy.
You are
absolutely not.
No, nominally.
Nominally.
You are an anomaly.
Wow.
Like, I don't know anyone that doesn't
That's very kind of you.
in that world, the finance world, which is so male driven.
It's driven by the mediocre middle-aged white man, and they definitely know more than us.
Holy shit. And they use
acronyms that we don't get.
There's always acronyms, and there's always, and if you just pay me, I'll tell you a bit about this. And
But
if you
I'll
just
only tell
subscribe
you
to
as
this,
much,
but
so you think I'm smart, so you continue to pay me.
Yeah. And
because that's all they've got. I don't need you.
No, just amazing.
I've got me. And I have an emergency fund.
I know. I never knew. This is the sexiest episode I've ever done in my life.
I love this.
Oh, my God. I love
Should we leave it here
much.
before we get ourselves into trouble?
I'm speechless. Am I ever speechless? Like, this is the best thing that's
sorry.
ever. All right. Victoria Devine, I adore you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything, and I'm thanking you for my listeners as well, because I know that they are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing right now. Me and Rachael, we're just so excited, and that they are listening right now going, oh my God, this can happen for me. Like,
I love it.
And
I love it.
And I deserve this.
No, it's, to me, so important. And it's not about being smart. It's just about having the resources, right? Like, there are toddlers out there that can speak multiple languages. Yeah. You can speak money. Yeah. You absolutely can see. If a toddler can do it, you can do it.
And if an ADHD person can do it, an ADHD other people can do it too, because a lot of people
if Yvie can get excited about it, everyone can.
Everyone can. I mean, I'm loving it.
She's in.
I'm in. Thank you for coming. I'm going to give all of the things that you all need are going to be in my show notes, but also when we will collab on this when the episode goes live, and I'm going to tag you in all the things. So all of you can just go and follow Victoria, go and follow She's the Money, go and follow whatever, go and do the things that you need to do, go and buy the books that you need to buy, and just take your time. Just don't speak as fast as I'm speaking right now, but
we need to get you a cup of tea.
Start. And I can't even tell you how excited to start my journey.
Get it, Queen. That's what we want.
Yes.
That's exactly
what we want. And I'm so
glad
glad that you're so happy for me.
Oh, that's my life. Like, this runs the entire world. But we're going now. I'm going to shut you off your own podcast.
Thank you. I will be in your ear holes next week. Please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you next week. You'll see. No, bye.